deliver an amazing experience to your guests. And for Coach Curt Cignetti at IU, it came down to three things. I'm Danny, and this is the Memory Makers Podcast, the show that helps you create amazing customer experiences and make more memories. And normally, we're here with myself and Russ, or Russ and a guest, or Russ solo, but today we have me, Danny, solo for you. And my voice is a little raspy, and I'll get to why in just a moment. It's related to the topic today. Today, we're going to be talking about the similarities between your business, your entertainment venue, and the Indiana Hoosiers and their football team, because they just won the national title. Now, if you don't like football or you don't like Indiana, you don't have to be fans of either to appreciate this episode and to gain some wisdom. So I want to be able to create some connections here that you might find valuable. So I'm going to get right into it. Well, actually, before I do that, I'll explain. I'm an alum of Indiana University. I'm a big fan, and the national title was when we released this a week ago Monday, and I was in Bloomington for the national title, and I was screaming and yelling in joy, and that's why I basically lost my voice, and I'm getting it back. So if it's a little bit gravelly and a little bit raspy, I apologize, but we're doing this for real. So what I want to talk about and start with here is one of the biggest problems and pain points that business owners have in this industry is staff turnover. Because generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, a lot of your staff will be high school and college kids. And because of that, there is a built-in turnover where the high school kids eventually go to college, so they leave the business. Or the college kids eventually go to the real world, so they leave the business. Now, some might stick around longer to become managers, but a lot of them do that. And so there's this built-in idea of turnover. And that's a pain point for a lot of people because you got to keep finding people and keep training them. And I hear so often that business owners find this very frustrating. But it's interesting because I recognized a parallel between your staff and a college football team. So a college football team, when the coach is looking at the people that are on the team, they know they have built-in turnover. There's only so many years of eligibility that a player can be on a team before they run out of eligibility or they go pro or they graduate or whatever the case is. They have anywhere from right now 4 to 6 years, but usually 4 to 5 years that they have them on the team, and then they move on. And there is this built-in turnover, and it's just the nature of the sport. It's built in. It's the expectation that everyone knows. So coaches don't get upset about that. They don't complain about that. They recognize this is the reality. Let's do what we can to continue building a roster. So every single year, they're looking for new people from high school. And right now, the transfer portal, we won't get into all that, but they're looking for people from high school to bring into their program, to add to their team, to kind of increase their depth chart, so to speak, finding new players that they can keep developing. And you can think about the way that you staff, instead of it being this frustrating thing that you get surprised when people leave and then you have to find replacements. Think about your staff the way that a college football coach thinks about their team. Always be looking for the next set of recruits. Always be looking for the next wave of people that you can bring in to your venue that are going to keep your staff strong, that are going to have the skills that you look for. And so that's the first parallel that I noticed between football and your venue. And the next one is that you know, if you think about college football recruiting, people talk about the 4 stars and the 5 stars and all of that. And those are the top recruits, the best of the best in the country in every single position. And Indiana winning the national title goes to show, because they didn't have any 5 stars, you don't actually need that. Instead, what you need is to find the players that contain the qualities and characteristics that you appreciate in an employee, that you think are valuable to your team. Bring those people on board and develop them. Because they don't have to be, it's like trying to hire someone. You look at Chick-fil-A and you say, oh my gosh, these employees are amazing. And you want to find the person who is the exact Chick-fil-A employee and just bring them in and they're perfect. It's not going to happen. We need to find the people who have some characteristics and qualities that we want in our business. Bring them in and develop them further. Give them more skills, give them more guidance, give them more training so that they can grow into that A player. They can grow into the Chick-fil-A quality kind of employee, because that's what it takes. They're not grown on trees. You don't just find them out in the wild. You've got to be able to develop those skills. And another parallel here that I think is really interesting is that you do need to develop them, right? It would be sometimes I talk to a business owner and their expectation is almost the same as, well, a college coach bringing in a new recruit their freshman year of college. They send them in the weight room for a week and then they expect them, they should be ready to be starters. Well, that's of course not going to happen. It takes way more time than that. To the same degree, if you hire an employee who's new, who has some of these skill sets you look for, and you train them for a few days or a week, and you say, well, there's going to be my A player now, it probably won't happen. It's going to take time and continual commitment. And that's why there are a lot of training companies that are in this industry that talk about training is not an event. Development is not an event. It's an ongoing thing that you do every single day, every single week, every single month, and every single year with all of your employees. You know, you look in athletics at the best players in any level in any sport. What are they doing on a regular basis? They're practicing the fundamentals, the little things to get better and better and better every day. And you can do that with your team. You can think like a football coach, or think like a basketball coach, or think like a fill in the blank of a sport you like coach. And treat your team members that way, where you're always working on getting them better at the fundamentals and the advanced skills. We've got to do them both. Now, when we look specifically at Indiana football and the turnaround that they had this year, and just a tiny little bit of context for anyone who's unaware or not a huge fan of football, Indiana football was the losingest program in college football. They lost more games than anybody else. They're historically probably the worst program in the country with how bad they were over 130 years of their existence. It was not good. And then a new coach comes in, and within 2 years, he wins the national title. And people have asked him, well, what was the magic? What's the secret sauce? What did you do? And his response was, there is no magic. And just like for you, there doesn't have to be magic if you want to enhance your culture and the effectiveness of your team and their ability to deliver an amazing experience to your guests. And for Coach Curt Cignetti at IU, it came down to three things. Three things that he did that helped develop the team to go from the worst in the nation to the national championship in 2 years. Number one is get the right people involved. He had said in almost every post-game interview in the postseason, this business is about people. What he does is about people. It's finding the right people. And sometimes that's going to be your frontline staff. Sometimes that's going to be your general manager. Sometimes that's going to be finding the right type of quality person to promote to a leadership role. But finding the right people, and for the people who are not the right ones, get them out of the organization. No one that I have ever talked to likes firing people. It's not a fun thing to do. And it never really gets easier to do. But we need to recognize that if you've got someone who's a bad culture fit, if you've got someone who is a toxic employee that's bringing everyone else down, get rid of them. I have talked to so many business owners and leaders in this industry and in others. And I have never once, ever had an experience where I talked to someone who fired a person because they were a toxic person in their culture, and it was a bad choice. It's never once been the bad choice. Every single time, it was the right call, and the business and the team all benefited from doing that. So even though in that moment it feels painful to get rid of people, or like, I don't have enough people, so I've got to keep them on staff, get rid of, because that toxicity that they bring is going to bleed into everybody else. And it brings your entire organization and culture down. So get rid of the toxic people who are not adding things to your culture. So that was number one. The next thing, number two, he changed the way people think. And that's up to you as an owner or as a leader to change the way people think and their mindset and their attitude at work. And that's why that toxic person's so bad, because they're going to negatively impact the way that people think in your organization. But when you can focus on getting people to believe in your mission, getting people to believe in the vision of what you can accomplish, to believe in the future of what you're trying to build, and get bought in and be focused on the positive outcomes, not to complain, not to focus all on the stress, not to be the negative Nancy's, but to focus on all the right things consistently, that's step number 2. And then the third piece about this was to develop people and a process and stick to the standard. We all have standards, and some of us have higher standards than others, right? Every business some have higher standards and some have lower standards. But when we can say, this is the process that we follow, this is the standard that we stick to, and I expect everyone to meet that standard, and you are accountable to that, and you put that through every decision that you make and every action that you take and every conversation that you have, and you combine these 3 things together. You get the right people involved, you change the way that people think, and you have a process that you stick to the standard. When you do those 3 things consistently, that's where culture shifts happen. That's where paradigm shifts happen. That's where you can take an organization, and you don't need to be the worst of culture. You could say, oh yeah, if I'm on a scale of 1 to 10 and 10's perfect and my culture is at a 7, this is what takes you from a 7 to an 8 to a 9 to hopefully a 10 one day, is being able to do these things consistently. The right people, the right mindset, and the right process and standards. And it has to be done consistently. We've talked about before in this podcast the idea of the compound effect. When you take small actions consistently over a long period of time, it creates huge results. To this example of, if you take a penny and you double it every day, after 30 days, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head. I think it's something like $5.3 million, right? And that's the power of the compound effect. But it also takes time, because if you go halfway through that month, if you take a penny and you double it every day for 15 days, how much money do you have halfway through that month? Again, I can't remember the numbers. I think it's something like $167. It's way smaller, because it takes time. Stick to the process, trust the process. And as you do this consistently, day in and day out, your culture improves. And you might have some people who decide to self-select out, because that, even if you didn't get rid of them and you didn't fire them, they might see, this is not a place for me. I don't want to stick to the standards that you expect. And that's okay. Set them free to be successful somewhere else. But when you can focus on developing your team the way that a coach develops their team, that's where I think some magic can happen. And that's where I want all of you to maybe have the Curt Cignetti effect in your own organization, to be able to take yourselves to the next level, to raise the standard and create a bigger impact in your community. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. As Russ likes to say, we appreciate those 5 stars. If you've got any ideas for future episodes, whether that is a topic you want us to cover or a guest that we should have on the show, follow us on social media, send us a DM. As always, shout out to Mikey Mike on the 1s and 2s, running this whole production and making this whole thing work behind the scenes. And we will catch you all on the next one, Troublemakers.